Hi, 5th grade, it's Mrs. Gioka with your flipped math lesson for today, 13-1. Today's objective is I can convert from one customary unit of measurement to another. Let's talk about this objective really quickly. Convert means to change. And customary units of measurement, I'm sure you're familiar with, even though if you're not familiar with that term, those units of measurement would be like inches, feet, yards, miles, okay? Those are the customary units of measurement of length. So we're going to be converting, which means changing from one unit of measurement to another unit of measurement, today's objective. Here's our example problem. Some frogs can jump 11 feet. What are some other ways to describe the same distance? So you can see on my number line, he has jumped in feet. He's jumped 11 feet. Well, how many inches would that be? How many yards would that be? That's the kind of thing that we're going to be learning today, how to do. Some things you're going to want to keep in mind and to remember, you want to write these things down, is that 1 foot equals 12 inches. You have to know that. This is something that you should already know, but if you don't know it yet, you need to write that down. 1 foot equals 12 inches. Okay? Also, 1 yard equals 3 feet. It is also the same as 36 inches. Okay? This is something you're going to be expected to remember and know. That 1 yard equals 3 feet or 36 inches. And then lastly, 1 mile equals 1,760 yards or 5,280 feet. Okay? You're going to want to make sure that you write those 3 things down, those 3 different measurements. Write them down because we're going to be using them today. Okay, some things to keep in mind. When we change from a larger unit to a smaller unit, we're going to use multiplication. So if you change from a larger unit, like a foot, to a smaller unit, like inches, we're going to be multiplying in order to do that. Let me show you how. So for example, if I have 12 feet, and I want to find out how many inches are in 12 feet, I'm going to use multiplication. You can see that 1 foot is 12 inches, and if I stack a block that's 12 inches long, or 1 foot long, and I have 12 of them to make 12 feet, I'm going to be multiplying 12 feet times 12 inches. 12 feet times 12 inches equals 144 inches. So 12 feet equals 144 inches. I multiply the number of feet times 12 inches. To change from a larger unit to a smaller unit, remember to multiply. The opposite, when we change from a smaller unit to a larger unit, we're going to divide. Okay? To go from a larger unit, to go from a smaller unit, like an inch, to a foot or a yard, we're going to divide. Okay? So, for example, if I have feet lined up here, and I've got 11 feet lined up here, you see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. I have 11 feet, and I know that 3 feet equal 1 yard, so I have taken every 3 feet and I've separated that into 1 yard. That's the same as finding 11 divided by 3. I have taken the number of feet and I've divided by 3 to find yards because I know that 3 feet are in 1 yard. That's the same as my fraction 11 over 3, or 11 divided by 3. When I take 11 and I divide it by 3, I get 3 with the remainder of 2. You can see in my picture I have 3 yards, 1, 2, 3 yards, and then there are 2 feet left over. There's my remainder of 2. So 11 feet equals 3 yards and 2 feet. I divided to find that answer. Okay? We're going to try to compare lengths. We're going to use a less than greater than or equal symbol to put in the circle as we compare 14 yards with 41 feet. One way we can do that is to convert the larger unit to smaller units and then compare. Remember, when you go from a larger to a smaller unit, then you're going to use multiplication to do that. Okay, so I've got 14 yards. I'm going to compare it with 41 feet. I'm going to change the larger unit to the smaller unit feet, and when I go from larger to smaller, I have to multiply. I also need to remember that 1 yard is the same as 3 feet. So I'm going to multiply the number of yards, which is 14, times 3 feet, so times 3. So 14 times 3. So over here, I'm going to do 14 times 3. 3 times 4 is 12. Carry the 1. 3 times 1 is 3, plus 1 more is 4. So 14 times 3 equals 42. So now I have 14 yards that equals 42 feet. Compare that with 41 feet, and 42 is greater than 41. So I know I can put my greater than symbol here. That 14 yards is larger than 41 feet. Okay, so what I did is I took the larger unit and I changed it into feet, which is a smaller unit, and to do that I had to use multiplication. Another way I could have done that is to convert the smaller unit, the feet, to larger units, which are yards, and then compare. Remember, when we go from smaller to larger, we're going to divide. So if I remember that 3 feet equals 1 yard again, this time instead of multiplying, I'm dividing. So I'm going to take 41 and I'm going to divide it by 3. You can see that in my fraction here. That's 41 divided by 3. Or I've written it out, 41 divided by 3. So I'm going to use my division box. 41 divided by 3. 3 goes into 4 one time. 1 times 3 is 3. Subtract, bring down. 3 goes into 11 13 times, or sorry, 3 times. 3 times 3 is 9. Whoops, I'm running out of room. 9, and then 11 minus 9 is 2. So I have 13 with a remainder of 2. So I'm going to compare 14 yards and 13 with a remainder of 2, or 2/3. Okay, and I know that 14 is greater than 13 and 2/3. So I'm going to put my greater than symbol there. So I can use either multiplication or division, but I have to remember what I'm using it for. If I'm going from a smaller number to a larger number, I have to use division. If I'm going from a larger number to a smaller number, I use multiplication. Let's practice. So first we're going to just convert some numbers, some units into other units. So I'm changing from feet to yard. So I'm going from a smaller to a larger number. When I go from a smaller number to a larger number, I have to divide. Okay? So I know that I'm going to divide. I have to know how many feet are in a yard. I know that 3 feet equal 1 yard. So I'm going to be dividing by 3. I'm going to divide how many feet I have by 3. So 9 divided by 3 equals 3. 9 feet equals 3 yards. Okay? Number 2, 288 inches, and I'm going to convert that to yards. I'm going from smaller to larger, and to go from smaller to larger, I have to divide. When I go from larger to smaller, then I multiply. I'm going from smaller to larger, so I'm going to have to remember how many inches there are in a yard. I know that there are 36 inches in 1 yard. So I'm going to be dividing, because I'm going from smaller to larger, and I'm going to divide by 36 inches. So I've got 288, and I have to divide by 36. And I know it's not 9, I think it's 8. 8 times 36, so when I try that, 6 times 8 is 48. 8 times 3 is 24, plus 4 more is 28. Yep. So 8 times 36 is 288. So I know that 8 is my answer. 288 inches equals 8 yards. Number 3. 5 inches or 5 feet equals how many inches? Remember, when I'm going from a smaller to a larger number, I have to divide. But I'm going from feet to inches, which is a larger unit to a smaller unit. When I go from a larger unit to a smaller unit, I multiply. So I have to know how many feet or how many inches there are in a feet. There are 12 inches in 1 foot. So I'm going to use that number 12. I'm going to multiply. 5 times 12. 5 times 12 equals 60. So there are 60 inches in 5 feet. Okay, now it's your turn. You're going to convert from smaller units to larger units and from larger units to smaller units. Try number 4. 8 feet and 7 inches equals how many inches? I'm going to give you a hint. After you have converted, don't forget to add that 7 inches. Okay, give it a try. Pause the video and see how you do. Okay, so you should have taken, remember that there are 12 inches in 1 foot, so you have taken 12 times 8, and that would equal 96. And then I reminded you, don't forget to add that 7 inches, so now you have 96 plus 7 inches, that equals 103 inches. So your answer would be 103. Number 5, 219 inches equals how many feet and how many inches left over? Remember, when you go from a smaller unit, like inches, to a larger unit, you're going to divide. Okay, so I had to remember that there are 12 inches in 1 foot. I'm using division because I'm going from smaller numbers to smaller units to larger units. So I took 219 divided by 12, and I wrote that out in my division box, and I ended up with 18, and then 3 is my remainder, and I could write that as a fraction, 18 and 3/12, which can be simplified into 18 and 1/4. So it could say that is 18 and 1/4 feet, or I could write out that is 18 feet and then take my remainder. My remainder was 3. 18 feet and 3 inches. Okay? Number 6. You're going to compare 64 inches and 2 yards. Is it 64 inches less than 2 yards, greater than 2 yards, or equal to 2 yards? Okay, you have to remember that there are 36 inches in 1 yard. So I went from a larger unit, yard, to inches, and when I go from yard to inches, I have to multiply. So I'm going to multiply by that 36. So I have 2 yards. I multiplied it by 36 inches. 2 times 36 equals 72. So 2 yards equals 72 inches. So I have 64 inches compared to 72 inches, and 72 inches is greater than 64, so 2 yards has to be greater than 64. I could have also done division. I could have taken 64 and divided it by 36, and that would have been another way to do that, and I would have seen that is smaller than 2 yards. Number 2, 29 yards compared to 87 feet. Okay, I have to remember that 1 yard is the same as 3 feet. So I took the 29 yards and I multiplied it times 3 feet. Remember, when you go from a larger unit to a smaller unit, you have to multiply. So I took 29 times 3, that equals 87. So 29 yards is the same as 87 feet, and when I compare 87 to 87, they are equal. So 29 yards, equals 87 feet. All right, we are finished for today with converting. See if you can convert from inches to feet, from feet to yards, and from yards to miles. We'll practice some more later. Bye-bye.